Aaldert Hofman is he does enterprise architecture, security, safety and environment at Schiphol Airport. So many of our visitors here will have come through there in the last day or so. He joined the Schiphol group in 2012, and he's been working in the field of enterprise architecture within the team of enterprise architects, with his primary focus on aviation security. Apart from that, he's also working on the capability of enterprise architecture itself, including ways of working and the use of tooling with a central repository. So in this session, he will show us how the airport is, how it maps, or the group, how it maps the complex independencies of their operations to improve their service quality, deliver exceptional passenger experiences, and ensure regulatory compliance. So a warm welcome back from the Open Group, please, for Aaldert Hofman.
Thank you.
Welcome back, sir.
Thank you. What's quite interesting with such a nice introduction, if I can live up to all the expectations. Let's see that. Thank you. Well, last week, I spoke to a product owner. He's the product owner of our CCTV landscape, so all the camera services that we provide. And he explained to me that he met an innovative new company who is able to track unaccompanied, abandoned luggage. And any abandoned luggage in a terminal in an airport is considered a security threat. So based on an algorithm, this new company could trace back not only which or who, where the passenger was that left the luggage in a certain place, but it was also possible to track that passenger, where that passenger is right now, using all the CCTV images. It sounded splendid. It was an excellent business case. We see all the opportunities. And then I start talking about privacy, about budget, about a massive rollout, about network zones, etc., etc. Well, that's what we're dealing with, and that's what I'm going to talk about in a few slides. So we'll address some of the emerging technologies that we have and that we face, talk a little bit about the challenges that we've got, and then I'll come back that we have a central repository, and although that might sound quite strange from emerging technologies, it really, really helps us to have that as a solid backbone. And via that repository, I'll jump into a completely other kind of topic, and that's namely, okay, how do we deal with the complex interactions within our company? So the first one that I guess most of you have not seen at the airport is about autonomous baggage transport. We use this, I guess right now for a couple of months, to transport cold luggage, cold baggage, which means that's baggage that is from a passenger who is in transfer for more than 2 or 3 hours. So we can store the luggage and it will be retrieved in due time to make the next flight. This is interesting technology. It's running autonomously. It's outdoor positioning. It needs all kind of geo information, and an airport, there's always construction work going on, so positioning is quite difficult. It works with all the operational colleagues and the operational control centers in the airport. And of course, when going outside at the airport, it needs to have very good interaction with all other traffic in the area. That's one. My favorite is this one, the autonomous wheelchair. If you're traveling either next week or somewhere over the holidays in the upcoming months, just have a look at it. You may try it. It's free of use for any passenger. And you just scan your boarding pass, and this wheelchair will take you there. It will not go very fast, Because safety for the passenger and safety for all other passengers, of course, is eminent. That's quite clear. It's really complex because it has indoor positioning. Of course, it needs flight data to get you to the proper gate. It has to be very safe, so there are all kind of sensors and cameras in it. But these are really, really interesting new technologies that we bit by bit introduce in the airport, serving passengers and dealing with a lot of business units within the company. So we like these kind of innovations, and then we are involved from enterprise architecture in the journey from innovation to standardization. And along the way, we increase architecture governance. So we start talking about, are you doing a proof of concept or are you doing a pilot? In our company, a proof of concept means you cannot interfere with passengers or with operations. A proof of concept is what you do somewhere outside in a lab or so. A pilot, then you have to apply with all the guardrails, with all the policies, and then you are allowed in a controlled environment to interact with operations and with passengers. We want to standardize, of course, on our foundational building blocks, which means the building blocks that we have in our network, that we have in our data centers, that we have in our data and analytics, because we want to get all kind of data from all, like the wheelchairs, all other technologies, to use that to control what's happening in and around the airport. And because of those foundational data blocks, and that's where the architecture building blocks and the solution building blocks are, that's why our repository is quite important. This might seem a bit dull, but it is an important one. Our repository provides us a lot of structure and communication. It's followed more or less like the traditional process steps. So we have the baseline, we have the target, and we have all kind of projects. The project environment, that's the freedom of our solution architect. They can do whatever they want if they think they need it for their project. We have hardly any guardrails on that. They just go for the success of the project. We do have strict quality assurance and toll gates at the end of the project. So when things are brought to the baseline, that's where we really let's say, pay attention to the quality. There's a personal interest as well, because for all the stuff in the baseline, that's my responsibility as enterprise architect. So whatever I get into the baseline, it's mine. So I have to take care of the quality of what's in there. We started with a central repository about a year or 6 or 7 ago, and right now it's about 45,000 artifacts. Well, you can read it. A lot of relations, and about 8,000 views. And I guess Steve or Ron Toledo mentioned, well, architects like to make models and like to make views. And we're confronted with a growth of about 500 views each quarter. That's quite a lot. On the other hand, it comes down to 1 or 2 views per architect per week. And that's not a lot. So we're struggling, or one of the challenges is, okay, how to manage that repository. And one of the great things that I like, I'm not going to mention which tool we're using, but one of the things I like about the tool we're using is that it also helps us in managing the content. Not only about, let's say, making it easy for architects to make new things, but we have to manage it as well. We have an editorial board. That's just a few colleagues. And we do not only pay attention how we use the tooling that we've got, but we mainly focus on the quality and the structure of all the content. And that's really, really helpful in our community, which consists of about, I guess, 30 or 40 architects all spread over the organization. So these are important things for us, also in guiding change and managing portfolio. And I guess that's one other aspect why, well, not only a repository, but also Archimate is really important. And I trust you can see that it's all dummy data. But these kind of dashboards help us in discussions with senior management and with CIO to illustrate what the, let's say, the health of our landscape is. Of course, such a dashboard requires underlying standards. It provides a direct link to our repository. So if we focus on a specific application, we can click and we go to the repository, use the views that we want, and go back to, let's say, go back to management language. And that's really helpful as well. We link it to the business capabilities. Senior management knows what business capabilities they are responsible for. And we can also show if there are specific gaps, either on architecture compliance or cyber compliance. And the other one is on technology compliance. If applications do not use our standard building blocks, we can manage and guide and make sure that those things are changed the upcoming lifecycle management project. So this really helps. Underneath, it's hard to mention, but underneath there's Archimate. That's where we standardize. We have the repository, and it helps us to manage our landscape. It also helps us in managing complex interdependencies. And that's an interesting word. But let me give an example. And there will be a slide that you can't read. That's intentionally, but we'll start with this one. So in our airport, and in any airport, it's important, if there's a fire alert, of course, the fire department wants to know where to go. Well, in our terminal alone, we have about 120 control panels, fire alert control panels, usually maintained and managed by main contractors. On top of that, we have the building management system, managed by another department, namely asset management. They provide the context of where are these alerts coming from, what's the context of the control panel, what's the main use of the specific area, etc., etc. Based on that one, we have the Emergency Response Control Center. They provide the deployment plans. If there's alert, the fire department knows, okay, where do I go and what is the plan of attack? And then in the end, there's just a tablet in the crash tender, in the fire truck. And that's where all the info has to go to. And that's where those guys and girls completely geared up have to manage to manage the tablet to get all that info. So that's how it goes from a fire alert and providing the fire department with the info they need. And then last year we had an interesting discussion, and a program manager came to us and he said, okay, the main contractors are replacing the sensors. And we have 4 different types of fire control panels. They're going to replace them all. The building management system was in major change as well, with a different department. The Emergency Response Control Center was changing their main system, and the fire department was in the life cycle strategy of those tablets. And the simple question that we got, architects, can you just assure me that over the next couple of years, the fire department always gets the info they need to know where to go? A simple question. And then we started to find out, okay, how does it all relate to each other. And so, yeah, okay, deliberately not readable. There are a few things very interesting about this one that surprised us as well. Well, first of all, it illustrates, like I always say, architects don't like spaghetti, we like lasagna. So straighten things out. And from the, let's say from the bottom upwards, in the bottom you see, of course, in the green, that's where all the real fire sensors and the fire alerts come from. And that's how it managed from left to right. In the, let's say, the bottom blue line, we have the building management systems. On top of that one, we have the emergency response control center system. And then in the end is, okay, how does it get to the fire department? We use this with a group of architects first to straighten our own world. We sat down and we said, okay, we want to take things apart. We built a plateau one by one step at a time. And between each of these plateaus, we only want to know, okay, who is responsible for which change? And that was the next plateau. And then we go on and we go on and we go on. And we place it in the logical order that we found either best or that we knew that projects were going right or wrong with delays. That really helped us. And then we were in the meeting with not only the program manager, but also with his team and sponsors, etc. And up front, we apologized for this picture because we said, okay, well, sorry, but we need it to explain how things interrelate and how these dependencies are. And then another thing happened, which was mentioned this morning also already as well. That's the storytelling. Just by explaining what we did, we explained this picture. And at the end of the meeting, we said, okay, well, we're going to make you a nice PowerPoint and explain it step by step. And he said, no. We want this one. Because of the story, it made sense to them as well. And although they do not understand Archimate, they do know how we built this picture and how it helped us to disentangle complexity and make sure that we give the fire department in the end the right info. So even these complex pictures, everybody says, no. It's even too complex for architects. Don't bring it to business. Okay, bring it to business with your story. Then hopefully it will work. And we're still using this one. We give it an update every month or so because projects come and go and new things change and we have to switch plateaus, etc., etc. But it really helps us. So if you combine this all, the growth in maturity, that's where we came from 6 to 10 years ago. It's helped us. We started using Archimate as a common tool. Of course, hardly ever mentioned, but over these years we had lots of change in our community. These kind of standards help us to, let's say, to onboard new colleagues, to bring them up to speed within the way we work. That really helps us. It provides structure and communication, even in our own roadmaps, but also in the dashboards we provide to senior management. It helps us to structure in our communication. And via the change board, it guides us in the portfolio. So all in all, that's how we manage the emerging technologies. Emerging technologies and emergency, that's not the same, I realize. But the emerging technologies really help us. We see there a lot of opportunity. We also see not only risk, but we also know that there's the need to have this kind of structure. Because if you mention AI to a privacy officer, that's not the good combination. You have to make it more specific and say, okay, well, there's an algorithm, and then we can start talking about who is managing the algorithm, who has access to the algorithm, who can update it, etc., etc. And that's how we do our, let's say, discussions with privacy champions, because we want to be the systems secure and safe, of course, as well. I see I run a little bit ahead of time, but that's it.
No, nobody minds a speaker that finishes early.
Yeah, so especially when lunch is waiting.
Especially when lunch is waiting. Please take a seat.
Thank you.
I've been told to sit closer to the speaker for the for the questions. So I guess that's easier for the folks recording it. So thank you for that. And I have one question, which is,
you're welcome.
How can the airport use the open group standards to make the immigration experience more pleasant, more efficient?
More efficient.
A few of our number here had more than an hour plus or so in the immigration line coming in. So
without additional fees? Without
additional fees, yes, that's right. Yes.
That's right. Well, I can give you an on-the-record answer or an off-the-record answer.
Both sound good, but off the record maybe.
Yeah, okay, I'll do that off the record.
Yeah.
But I guess these kind of examples, because they're very well recognizable. Yeah. And these kind of examples really are a good illustration, I guess, even of the previous presentation about the ecosystem.
Yeah.
And as an airport, of course, we want you to go as smoothly through the airport and through all phases of the process as possible. Immigration is, and that's not to bring the pain to someone else, but the immigration is not the responsibility of the airport, but of immigration police. Yeah. So it's a governmental responsibility, and I'm completely happy that they do their job as good as possible. Yeah. It might take a bit longer than expected, and there's the shortage in personnel everywhere. But it's the complexity in planning as well, because there are situations, and I'm not sure if that's the case where you're referring to, but imagine there are, well, a more common example is if there is a specific if the wind blows in a specific way, then early in the morning, all planes from the US arrive 1 hour earlier.
Right.
That completely messes up the planning of immigration.
Yeah, of course.
So these kind of things happen.
Yeah, makes sense. No, It was an unfair question, but
no, okay.
I couldn't resist.
Happy to elaborate.
I couldn't resist, but yeah. So we have a number of questions about the repository, but just before we get there, there appear to be many more artifacts than relations. Are the rest just orphans in the repository?
Well, that's one of the things that is that's what we really like, the tooling that we use. It helps us to reduce and eliminate those orphans, and that's one of the things that we as an editorial board do. So every quarter we do have a set of quality characteristics that we run through, and we correct those. So there are not too much orphans.
Right. Okay, that's good to hear. Related question. Is your architecture repository connected with the operational management repositories for better end-to-end visibility?
In some extent. There's always, and that's, I guess a lot of companies will recognize that it's a complex interaction. Mm-hmm. It is very useful and for the hand liggend, straightforward that you use it. On the other hand, we work in our roadmaps ahead of the operational, the CMDB. Right. On the other hand, if things change in the CMDB. For certain aspects, we want to get updated on that change. On other aspects, we do not want to know that. For instance, if you fly out of the airport, we have about 100 of those security lanes where you check your stuff. In the CMDB, all 100 are listed.
Right.
I only have one.
Right.
So that's, yes, we are linked for specific information flows.
Sure.
Yeah.
Makes sense. The illustration purposes only diagram that you showed, should that be read from left to right as a series of translations?
What's the question behind the question?
I guess understanding how that was portrayed or how that was captured in the diagram. Yeah. I guess. The question behind the question, I don't know if someone's prepared to ask, but
yes, but it is meant to of course, from all kind of logical perspectives. Yes, on the left-hand side there was the baseline, and on the right-hand side there's the target, and we deliberately left the baseline in, so people could always say, okay, so these are the changes that we've already gone through, and this is where we are right now in the entire journey. So yes, well, I don't want to. My manager usually reads the things better if you go from left to right.
Okay, fair enough. So last question I have, and that's the airport has a reputation for innovation and trying new things. You showed the wheelchair, for example. Yeah. That example, what kind of duration of a project does it get from somebody thinking of that to that now being testable by anyone in the airport?
Oh, that's a tough question, because it of course also depends on all kind of let's say aspects where and how to use that innovation. For instance, the wheelchair. We did kind of a very a first pilot where there was always one member of staff next to the wheelchair, right, to avoid any unforeseen events, because this wheelchair is operational in a very busy departure lounge. So safety is of the utmost importance. Yeah. If you think about the baggage, or another innovation of a few years ago was the taxi bot, with automatically kind of taxis an airplane, and that's not that much safety. But of course, an airplane is very expensive, so any kind of damage should be avoided at any cost. And there are the passengers, of course. So that's it depends per innovation. Yeah. But all in all, it will take a couple of years. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Aaldert, we'll leave it there. Let people have their lunch.
Yeah, sure.
But thank you for sharing what's going on, and it's great to see somebody talk about our Archimate standard for a change as well, which is it's being used in a very real and important way there. So thank you for sharing that. So,
you're welcome.
Aaldert Hofman, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.